Edward's Day Out. Once upon a time there was a little engine called Edward. He lived in a shed with 5 other engines. They were all bigger than Edward and boasted about it. They said, "The driver won't choose you again. He wants big, strong engines like us." Edward hadn't been out for a long time, and he began to feel sad. Just then the driver and fireman came along to start work. The driver looked at Edward and said, "What's the matter? Are you feeling sad? Would you like to come out today? And Edward said, "Oh yes, please." So the fireman lit the fire and made a nice lot of steam. Then the driver pulled the lever and Edward puffed away. And he blew his whistle. "Look at me. Look 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 at me." The other engines were very cross at being left behind, and away went Edward to get some coaches. "Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me." At last Edward found the coaches, and they said, "Oh, please be careful, Edward. Don't bump and bang us like the other engines do." So Edward came up to the coaches very, very gently. And the shunter fastened the coupling. The coaches were very pleased. "Thank you, Edward. That was kind. We are glad you're taking us today." Then they went to the station where the people were waiting. "Here we are, here we are, here we are, here we are, here we are." "Come along, get in quickly, please." So the people got in quickly, and Edward waited happily for the guard to blow his whistle and wave his green flag. He waited and waited, and there was no whistle and no green flag. Edward was getting anxious. "Where is that guard?" The driver and fireman asked the station master. Have you seen the guard? No." They asked the porter. Have you seen the guard? Yes, last night." Edward began to get cross. Are we ever going to start? Just then a little boy shouted, "Here he comes!" And there the guard was, running down the hill with his flags in one hand and a sandwich in the other. He ran onto the platform, blew his whistle, and jumped into his van. Edward puffed off. "Here we go, shh, shh, here 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 we go, shh, shh." He did have a happy day. All the children ran to wave as he went past, and he met old friends at all the stations. He worked so hard that the driver promised to take him out again next day. And he told the other engines in the shed that night, "I'm going out again tomorrow. What do you think of that, But he didn't hear what they thought, for he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once. Edward and Gordon. One of the engines in Edward's shed was called Gordon. He was very big and very proud.
"You watch me this afternoon, little Edward. When I rush through with the express, that'll be a splendid sight for you."
Just then his driver pulled the lever.
"Goodbye, little Edward. Look out for me this afternoon. Goodbye, little Edward."
Edward went off too, to do some shunting. Edward liked shunting. It was fun playing with trucks. He would come up quietly and give them a quick pull, and the trucks would scream out, "Oh, oh, 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 oh,
Oh, whatever's happening?
Then Edward would stop quickly, and the silly trucks would bump into each other. "Oh, oh, 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 oh." Edward pushed them until they were running nicely, and when they weren't expecting it, he would stop. One of them would be sure to run onto the other line. Edward played till there were no more trucks. Then he stopped to rest. Presently he heard a whistle, and Gordon came puffing along very slowly and very crossly. Instead of nice shining coaches, he was pulling a lot of very dirty coal trucks.
A goods train. A goods train. The shame of it. The shame of it. The shame of it. Oh dear. Oh dear.
He went slowly through with the trucks clattering and banging behind him. Edward laughed and went to find some more trucks. Soon afterwards a porter came and spoke to Edward's driver. "Yeah, Gordon can't get up the hill. Will you take Edward and push him, please?" They found Gordon halfway up the hill, and he was very cross. His driver and fireman were talking to him severely. "You're not trying, Gordon. You're not trying at all." And Gordon said,
"I can't do it. I can't do it. The noisy trucks hold an engine back so. If there were coaches now, clean, sensible things that come quietly, that would be different."
Edward's driver came up. "Here, we've come to push you."
"Oh, it's no use at all."
"Well, you wait and see." They brought the train back to the bottom of the hill. Edward came up behind the brake van. "I'm ready."
"It's no good."
The guard blew his whistle, and they pulled and pushed as hard as they could. Gordon pulled.
"I can't do it. I can't do it."
Edward pushed. "I will do it. I will do it."
"I can't do it."
"I will do it." Edward pushed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could, and almost before he realized it, Gordon found himself at the top of the hill.
"I've done it. I've done it. I've done it."
And he forgot all about Edward pushing behind. He didn't wait to say thank you, but ran on so fast that he passed 2 stations before his driver could make him stop. Edward had pushed so hard that when he got to the top, he was out of breath. Gordon ran on so fast that Edward was left behind. The guard waved and waved, but Edward couldn't catch up. He ran on to the next station, and there the driver and fireman said they were very pleased with him. The fireman gave him a nice long drink. And the driver said, "I'll get my paint out tomorrow and give you a beautiful new coat of blue with red stripes. Then you'll be the smartest engine in the shed." The Sad Story of Henry. Once an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. It went into a tunnel and squeaked through its funnel and never came out again. The engine's name was Henry. His driver and fireman argued with him, but he wouldn't move. He said,
No, I shan't come out, so there. The rain will spoil my lovely green paint with red stripes. No.
The guard blew his whistle till he had no more breath, and waved his flags till his arms ached. But Henry stayed in the tunnel and blew steam at him.
Go away. Go away. I'm not going to spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes for you.
The passengers came and argued too, but Henry would not move.
No! No! Leave me alone.
A fat director who was on the train told the guard to get a rope.
Fetch a rope, will you? That's right. Now, Henry, we will pull you out.
But Henry only blew steam at him and made him wet.
Leave me alone.
They hooked the rope on, and all pulled except the fat director.
My doctor has forbidden me to pull, don't you know?
They pulled and pulled and pulled, but still Henry stayed in the tunnel. Then they tried pushing from the other end. The fat director said,
1, 2, 3, push!
But he didn't help himself. He said,
My doctor has forbidden me to push.
They pushed and pushed and pushed, but still Henry stayed in the tunnel. At last another train came. The guard waved his red flag and stopped it. The 2 engine drivers, the 2 firemen, and the 2 guards went and argued with Henry. "Look, Henry, it's stopped raining."
Yes, but it'll begin again soon, and what would become of my green paint with red stripes then?
So they brought the other engine up, and it pushed and puffed, and puffed and pushed, as hard as ever it could. But still Henry stayed in the tunnel. So they gave it up, and the fat director told Henry,
We shall leave you there for always and always and always.
They cut a new tunnel through the hill, they took up the old rails, and they built a big brick wall in front of Henry. Now Henry can't get out, and he watches the trains rushing through the new tunnel. He's very sad because no one will ever see his lovely green paint with red stripes again. But I think he deserved it, don't you? Edward, Gordon, and Henry. Edward and Gordon often went through the tunnel where Henry was shut up. Edward would say, "Hello," and Gordon would say,
"Serves you right."
Poor Henry had no steam to answer. His fire had gone out. Soot and dirt from the tunnel roof had spoiled his lovely green paint and red stripes. He was cold and unhappy, and wanted to come out and pull trains too. Gordon always pulled the express. He was proud of being the only engine strong enough to do it. There were many heavy coaches full of important people like the fat director who'd punished Henry. Gordon was seeing how fast he could go. Faster, 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 faster. Faster, 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 faster. Faster, 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 faster. And the coaches went. Gordon could see Henry's tunnel in front, and he thought to himself,
"In a minute, I'll just go at Henry and rush through and out into the open again."
Closer and closer he came. He was almost there when...
"Oh dear! Oh, what's happened? Oh."
Gordon was in a cloud of steam and going slower and slower. His driver stopped the train.
"Oh, what has happened to me? Oh, I feel so weak."
And the driver said, "You've burst your safety valve. You can't pull the train any more."
"Oh dear, and we were going so nicely too. Look at Henry laughing at me."
Gordon made a face at Henry and blew smoke at him.
"Stop it."
Everybody got out and came to see Gordon. The fat director said,
Yes, I never liked these big engines. Always going wrong. Send for another engine at once."
While the guard went to find one, they uncoupled Gordon and ran him onto a siding out of the way. The only engine left in the shed was Edward. Edward, Gordon isn't feeling very well. Will you come and pull his coaches for him?" "Well, I'll try." Gordon saw Edward coming.
"Oh, he's no use. Edward can't pull a train."
Edward puffed and pulled and pulled and puffed, but he couldn't move the heavy coaches.
"I told you so. Why not let Henry try,
And the fat director said,
"All right, I will. Henry, will you help pull this train?"
And Henry was delighted.
"Oh, yes, certainly. Only too pleased."
So Gordon's driver and fireman lit his fire, some plate layers broke down the wall and put back the rails, and when he had steam up, Henry puffed out. He was dirty. His boiler was black and he was covered with cobwebs.
Oh, I'm so stiff. I'm so stiff.
"You'd better have a run and ease your joints and find a turntable."
Henry came back feeling much better, and they put him in front. Edward said, "I'm ready."
"So am I." "Pull hard, pull hard."
"We'll do it. We'll do it.
"Pull hard."
We'll do it." The heavy coaches jerked and began to move. slowly at first, then faster and faster.
We've done it together!
We've done it together!
We've done it together!
We've done it together! Hooray, you've done it! Hooray, you've done it! Hooray, you've done it! All the passengers were so excited, the fat director leaned out of the window to wave to Edward and Henry, but the train was going so fast that his hat blew off into a field, where a goat ate it for his tea. They never stopped till they came to the big station at the end of the line. The passengers all got out and said thank you, and the fat director promised Henry a new coat of paint.
Would you like blue and red?
Oh, yes, please. Then I'll be like Edward and Gordon. That will be nice.
Thomas and Gordon. Thomas was a tank engine who lived at a big station. He had 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He was a fussy little engine, always pulling coaches about. He pulled them to the station, ready for the big engines to take out on long journeys. And when trains came in and the people had got out, he would pull the empty coaches away so that the big engines could go and rest. He was cheeky, too. He used to play tricks on the other engines. He liked to come quietly beside them and make them jump. One day, Gordon was resting on a siding. He was very tired. The big express had been late. He was just going to sleep when Thomas came up in his cheeky way. "Wake up, lazy bones! Do some hard work for a change. You can't catch me!" And he ran off laughing. Instead of going to sleep again, Gordon thought how he could pay Thomas out. One morning, Thomas wouldn't wake up. It was nearly time for the express. The people were waiting, but the coaches weren't ready. At last, Thomas started.
"Oh, dear. Oh, sure."
The coaches were very impatient. "Come on, hurry up, hurry up. We'll be late." Thomas gave them a rude bump. "Oh, oh, 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 oh," and started for the station. "Shh, shh, 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 shh. Come on, stop dawdling, stop dawdling." The coaches were now very cross. "Where have you been? Where have you been?" Thomas fussed into the station, and Gordon said,
Hurry up, you!
"Hurry up yourself."
Don't worry, I will.
And almost before the coaches had stopped moving, Gordon came out of his siding and was coupled to the train.
Come on, get in quickly, please.
So the people got in quickly. The signal went down, the clock struck the hour, the guard waved his green flag, and Gordon was ready to start. Thomas usually pushed behind the big trains to help them start, but he was always uncoupled first, so that when the train was running nicely, he could stop and go back. This time he was late, and Gordon started so quickly that they forgot to uncouple Thomas. The heavy train slowly began to move out of the station. Gordon grunted at the coaches.
Come on, Come on. Shh.
Thomas teased Gordon. Pull harder! Pull harder! The train went faster and faster. Too fast for Thomas. He wanted to stop, but he couldn't. Stop! Stop! I can't keep up! You're going too fast! Gordon laughed. Faster, 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 faster. And the coaches chuckled with glee. You can't get away, you can't get away, you can't get away, you can't get away. Poor Thomas was going faster than he'd ever been before. He was out of breath and his wheels hurt him, but he had to go on and on and on. Oh dear, 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 oh dear. I shall never be the same again. I shall never be the same again. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. My wheels will be quite worn out. At last they stopped. Everyone laughed to see Thomas puffing and panting behind. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. They uncoupled him, and he ran onto a siding out of the way. Gordon chuckled as he passed.
Well, little Thomas, now you know what hard work means, don't you,
Poor Thomas couldn't answer. He had no breath. He just puffed slowly away to rest. And he had a long, long drink. And he was careful afterwards never to be cheeky to Gordon again. Thomas's train. Thomas often grumbled because he was not allowed to pull passenger trains. The other engines laughed.
You're too impatient, Thomas. You'd be sure to leave something behind.
This annoyed Thomas. Rubbish! You just wait. I'll show you. One night he and Henry were alone. Henry was ill. The men worked hard on him, but he didn't get better. Now, Henry usually pulled the first train in the morning, and Thomas had to get his coaches ready. And Thomas thought to himself, now, if Henry is ill, perhaps I shall pull his train. And Thomas ran off and found the coaches. Come along, come along. The coaches were very grumpy. There's plenty of time, there's plenty of time. Thomas took them to the platform and wanted to run round in front at once, but his driver wouldn't let him. Now, don't be impatient, Thomas. So Thomas waited and waited. The people got in. The guard and the station master walked up and down. The porters banged the doors. And still Henry didn't come. Thomas got more and more excited every minute. The fat director came out of his office to see what was the matter, and the guard and the station master told him about Henry. Well, Henry's not very well today.
We'll find another engine.
Well, there's only Thomas.
Well, you'll have to do it then, Thomas. Be quick now.
So Thomas ran round to the front and backed down onto the coaches, ready to start. He was so excited his driver had to say to him,
now don't be impatient, Thomas. Wait till everything is ready.
But Thomas was too excited to listen to a word he said. What happened then, no one knows. Perhaps they forgot to couple Thomas to the train. Perhaps Thomas was too impatient to wait till they were ready, or perhaps his driver pulled the lever by mistake. Anyhow, Thomas started. People shouted and waved at him, but he didn't stop. Thomas thought to himself, they're waving because I'm such a splendid engine. Henry says it's hard to pull trains, but I think it's easy. and he pretended to be like Gordon. Faster, 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 faster. Faster, 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 faster. As he passed the first signal box, he saw the man leaning out, waving and shouting. And he thought to himself, "They're pleased with me. They've never seen me pulling a train before. It's nice of 'em to wave." And he hurried on. Faster, 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 faster. Faster, 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 faster. But he came to a signal at danger. "Oh, bother! I must stop. Oh, and I was going so nicely too." What a nuisance signals are. And he blew an angry One of the signalmen ran up. "Hello, Thomas. What are you doing here, "Well, I'm pulling a train. Can't you see?" "Oh, where are your coaches then?" Thomas looked back. "Why, bless me if I haven't left 'em behind." "Yes, you'd better go back quickly and fetch them." Poor Thomas. He was so sad he nearly cried. But his driver said, "Cheer up. Let's go back quickly and try again." At the station, all the passengers were talking at once. They were telling the fat director, the station master, and the guard what a bad railway it was. But when Thomas came back, and they saw how sad he was, they couldn't be cross. So they coupled him to the train, and this time he really pulled it. But for a long time afterwards, the other engines laughed at Thomas and said,
"Look, there's Thomas, who wanted to pull a train, but forgot about the coaches."
Thomas and the Trucks. Thomas used to grumble in the shed at night. "I'm tired of pushing coaches. I want to see the world." The others didn't take much notice, for Thomas was a little engine with a long tongue. But one night Edward came into the shed. He was a kind little engine, and he felt sorry for Thomas. "Thomas, I've got some trucks to take home tomorrow. If you take them instead, I'll push the coaches to the yard." Thomas was delighted. "Thank you, Edward. That will be nice." So they asked their drivers next day if they could change, and the drivers said, "Well, yes. Well, yes." And Thomas ran off happily to find the trucks. Now, trucks are silly and noisy. They talk a lot and don't attend to what they're doing. They don't listen to their engine, and when he stops, they bump into each other screaming, "Oh, oh, 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 whatever is happening?" And I'm sorry to say, they play tricks on an engine who's not used to them. Edward knew all about trucks, and he warned Thomas to be careful. But Thomas was too excited to listen. The shunter fastened the coupling, and the signal dropped. Thomas was ready. The guard blew his whistle. Thomas answered and started off. But the trucks weren't ready. "Oh, oh, 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 wait, Thomas, wait." But Thomas wouldn't wait. "Come on, come on, And the trucks grumbled slowly out of the siding onto the main line. Thomas was happy. "Come along, come along, come along, come along, come along, And the trucks grumbled, "All right, don't fuss. All right, don't fuss. Bong, 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 bong." They clattered through stations and rumbled over bridges. Come along, shh, shh, come along, shh, shh, come along, shh, shh. And they rushed through the tunnel in which Henry had been shut up. Then they came to the top of the hill where Gordon had stuck, and Thomas's driver said, "Steady now, Thomas, steady." And he shut off the steam and began to put on the brakes. Thomas called out, "We're stopping! We're stopping!" And the trucks answered back, "No, no, 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 no." And they bumped into each other. Go on, go on, go on, go on, go on. And before his driver could stop them, they'd pushed Thomas down the hill and were rattling and laughing behind him. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha, long, 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 ha ha, long, long. Poor Thomas tried hard to stop them from making him go too fast. "Stop pushing! Shh, 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 shh. Stop pushing! Shh, 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 shh. Stop pushing!" Shh, shh, shh. But the trucks wouldn't stop. They just giggled in their silly way. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha, bong bong, bong bong, ha ha. Thomas was glad when they got to the bottom. Then he saw in front the place where they had to stop. "Oh dear, what shall I do?" They rattled through the station, and luckily the line was clear, and they swerved into the goods yard. Thomas put his brakes on tight, and he skidded along the rails. "Oh, I must stop!" And he shut his eyes tight. When he opened them, he saw that he'd stopped just in front of the buffers, and there watching him was the fat director.
"Thomas, what are you doing here,
"Well, I've brought Edward's trucks."
"Oh, why did you come so fast?"
"Well, I didn't mean to. I was pushed."
"Pushed? Haven't you pulled trucks before?"
"No."
"Then you've a lot to learn about trucks, little Thomas. They're silly things and must be kept in their place. After pushing them about here for a few weeks, you'll know almost as much about them as Edward. Then you'll be a really useful engine."
Thomas and the Breakdown Train. Every day the fat director came to the station to catch his train, and he always nodded to Thomas and said,
Morning, Thomas."
There were lots of trucks in the yard, and Thomas had to push and pull them into their right places. He worked hard. He knew now that he wasn't so clever as he'd thought, and he wanted to learn all about trucks so as to be a really useful engine. But on the siding, by themselves, were some trucks that Thomas was told he mustn't touch. There was a small coach, some flat trucks, and two queer things his driver called cranes. "That's the breakdown train, Thomas, and when there's an accident, the workmen get into the coach, and the engine takes them quickly to help the hurt people, and to clear and mend the line. The cranes are for lifting heavy things like engines and coaches and trucks." One day Thomas heard an engine whistling. "Help! Help!" And a goods train came rushing through very fast. "Help! Help!" The engine, a new one called James, was frightened. His brake blocks were on fire, and smoke and sparks streamed out on each side. "They're pushing me! They're pushing me! Those silly trucks are pushing me!" And the trucks just laughed. "Ha ha! Ha ha! Ba 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 ba! Ha ha! Ba ba ha ha! Ba ba." Poor James disappeared under the bridge, whistling for help. Thomas the tank engine didn't know what to do. "Oh, I'd like to teach those trucks a lesson." Presently a man came, running.
"James is off the line. The breakdown train. Quickly!"
So Thomas was coupled on. The workmen jumped into their coach, and off they went. Thomas worked his hardest. Faster, faster. Faster, faster. Oh, bother those trucks and their tricks. I only hope poor James isn't hurt. Faster, faster. They found James and the trucks at a bend in the line. The brake van and the last few trucks were on the rails, but the front ones were piled in a heap. James was in a field, with a cow looking at him, and his driver and fireman were feeling him all over to see if he was hurt.
"Never mind, James. It wasn't your fault. We always said your wooden brakes was no good."
Thomas pushed the breakdown train alongside. Then he pulled the unhurt trucks out of the way.
Oh, oh, oh dear! Oh, don't hurt us, Thomas! Oh, 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 don't hurt us, Thomas!
It serves you right. It serves you right. He puffed backwards and forwards all the afternoon, and he scolded the trucks. "This'll teach you a lesson. This'll teach you a lesson." And the trucks answered in groany, creaky sort of voices,
"Yes, it will. Oh, yes, it will. Oh, oh."
Then, when they put James back onto the rails, he tried to move, but he couldn't, so Thomas helped him back to the shed. The fat director was waiting anxiously for them.
"Well, Thomas, I've heard all about it, and I'm very pleased with you. You're a really useful engine. James shall have some proper brakes and a new coat of paint, and you, well, you shall have a branch line all to yourself."
"Oh, sir, thank you." Now Thomas is as happy as can be. He has a branch line all to himself, and puffs proudly backwards and forwards with 2 coaches all day. He's never lonely, because there's always some engine to talk to at the junction. Edward and Henry stop there quite often and tell him the news. Gordon is always in a hurry and doesn't stop, but he never forgets to say to Thomas, and Thomas in return always whistles, James and the Top Hat. James was a new engine who lived at a station at the other end of the line. He had 2 small wheels in front and 6 driving wheels behind. They weren't as big as Gordon's, and they weren't as small as Thomas's. The fat controller told him,
"You're a special mixed traffic engine. You'll be able to pull coaches or trucks quite easily."
But trucks are not easy things to manage, and on his first day they'd pushed James down a hill into a field. He'd been ill after the accident, but now he had new brakes and a shining coat of red paint. The fat controller was quite kind to James.
"The red paint will cheer you up after your accident. You can pull coaches today, and Edward can help you."
So James and Edward went together to find the coaches. Edward knew all about coaches and trucks.
"Be careful with the coaches, James. They don't like being bumped. Trucks are silly and noisy. They need to be bumped and taught to behave, but coaches get cross and will pay you out."
They took the coaches to the platform and were both coupled on in front. The fat controller, the station master, and some little boys all came to admire James's shining rods and red paint. James was so pleased. "I'm a really splendid engine. I'm so excited. I feel like going... James let off steam. The Fat Controller, the station master, and the guard all jumped, and a shower of water fell on the Fat Controller's nice new top hat. Then the whistle blew, and James thought they'd better go. So they went. "Go on, Edward. Shh, 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 shh. Go on, Edward. Shh, 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 shh. Don't push. Shh. Don't push. Don't push." Edward didn't like starting quickly. Neither did the coaches. "Don't go so fast. Don't go so fast. Don't go so fast. Don't go so fast." But James didn't listen. He just wanted to run away before the Fat Controller could call him back. He didn't even want to stop at the first station. And Edward had to say, "James, James, stop at once." Even so, 2 coaches in front were beyond the platform before they stopped, and they had to go back to let the passengers out. Lots of people came to look at James, but as no one seemed to know about the Fat Controller's top hat, James felt happier. Presently they came to the junction where Thomas was waiting with his 2 coaches. Thomas was pleased to see James. "Hello, James. Feeling better?" "Yes, thank you. That's right." "Ha! That's my guard's whistle. I must be off. Sorry I can't stop. I don't know what that Fat Controller would do without me to run his branch line. Ta-ra! Shh, shh, ta-ra! Shh, shh, ta-ra! Shh, shh, ta-ra! Shh, 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 and off he puffed with his 2 coaches into a tunnel. Edward and James pulled away from the junction. They passed the field where James had had his accident. The fence was mended, and the cows back again. James whistled at them, but they paid no attention. On went James and Edward, through Edward's station yard, and they started to climb the hill beyond. "It's ever so steep. It's ever so steep.
I've done it before. I've done it before.
It's steep, but we'll do it.
It's steep, but we'll do it.
And the 2 engines puffed together as they pulled the train up the long hill. They both rested at the next station, and Edward told James the story of how Gordon had stuck on the hill and he had had to push him up. James laughed so much he got hiccups. He made so much noise he frightened an old lady in a black bonnet, and she dropped all her parcels. 3 porters, the station master, and the guard had to run after her, picking them up. James got quieter in his shed that night. He had enjoyed his day, but he was a little afraid of what the Fat Controller would say about the top hat. James and the Bootlace. Next morning, the Fat Controller spoke severely to James.
"If you can't behave, I shall take away your red coat and have you painted blue. So there."
James didn't like that at all, and he was very rough with the coaches as he brought them to the platform. "Oh, come along, shh! Come along, shh!" And the coaches grumbled, "All in good time, all in good time, bubble, 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 bubble. Oh, stop grumbling and come on! Shh, 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 and James snorted into the station with the coaches grumbling after him. James was cross that morning. Gordon never fetches his own coaches, and he's only painted blue, where a splendid red engine like me should never have to fetch his own coaches. And he puffed and snorted round to the front of the train and backed onto it with a rude bump. Oh, 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 went the coaches. That was too bad. And no one came near James. He felt very lonely. I'll show 'em. I'll show 'em. They think Gordon is the only engine who can pull coaches. Then the guard blew his whistle. And James started off with a tremendous jerk. Come on, shh, shh, come on, shh, shh, come on, shh, 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 shh. And off he went with the coaches squeaking and groaning. They clattered over the points and out onto the open line. Hurry, 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 shh, 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 hurry, 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 shh, 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 hurry, 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 shh, 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 shh. The coaches didn't like it. You're going too fast, you're going too fast, you're going too fast, you're going too fast. And indeed the coaches were going so fast that they swayed from side to side. James laughed and tried to go faster, but the coaches wouldn't let him. We're going to stop, we're going to stop, we're going to stop, we're going to stop, we're going to stop. And they stopped. James was very worried. He said to his driver, "What's the matter?" "What's the matter? Huh. You might as well ask. The brakes are hard on. There's a leak in the pipe, most likely. You've banged the coaches enough to make a leak in anything." The guard and the driver got down and looked at the brake pipes all along the train. At last they found a hole where the rough treatment had made a joint work loose. The guard said, "Well, how shall we mend it?" James's driver thought for a moment. "Well, we'll do it with newspapers and a leather bootlace." Where's the bootlace coming from? We haven't got one." "Well, we'll ask the passengers." So the guard made everyone get out. Has anyone got a leather bootlace, please?" But they all said, "No, no, 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 oh, no, no," except one man in a bowler hat called Jeremiah Jobling, who tried to hide his feet. The guard said, "You have a leather bootlace there, I see, sir. Please give it to me." And Jeremiah Jobling said, "No, I won't." "Well, then I'm afraid, sir, I'm very much afraid that this train will have to stop where it is, and it'll be all your fault." Then the passengers all told Jeremiah Jobling what a mean man he was, and at last he gave them his laces. The driver tied a pad of newspapers tightly around the hole, and James was able to pull the train very gently. But he was a sadder and wiser James, and he took care never to bump coaches again. Troublesome Trucks. James didn't see the Fat Controller for several days. They left James alone in the shed. He was very unhappy. "Oh dear, I'll never be allowed out any more. I shall have to stay in this shed for always, and no one will ever see my red coat again. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. And James began to cry. Just then the fat controller came along.
"Oh, I see that you're sorry, James. Well, I hope now that you'll be a better engine. You've given me a lot of trouble. People are laughing at my railway, and I don't like that at all. At all."
I'm very sorry, sir.
Well, that's a good engine. Well done. Now, I want you to pull some trucks for me, so run along and find them.
Oh, very good, sir. And James puffed happily away. Very soon he met a little tank engine. "Hello, James. Here are your trucks. Have you got some bootlaces ready, eh?" James took no notice, but backed down onto the trucks.
"Oh, no, no, oh, we want a proper engine, not a red monster. No, 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 oh."
But James backed onto them and started as soon as the guard was ready. At last they saw Gordon's Hill ahead. James's driver said, "Now, look out for trouble, James. We'll go fast and get them up before they know it. Now, don't let them stop you." So James went faster, and they were soon halfway up the hill. "I'm doing it! Shh, shh, I'm doing it! Shh, shh, I'm doing it! Shh, shh, I'm doing it! Shh, 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 shh." Oh, but it was hard work. Then suddenly there was a jerk, and James got to the top easily. "Oh, I've done it! Shh, I've done it! Shh, I've done it! Shh, I've done it! Shh, hurrah! It's easy now! Shh, shh, shh." But the driver had shut off steam. "Those trucks have done it again, James. We've left our tail behind. Look." Sure enough, the last 10 trucks were running backwards down the hill. The coupling had snapped. But the guard was very brave. Very carefully and cleverly he made them stop. Then he got out and walked down the line with his red flag. James backed the other trucks carefully down the hill. Well, no wonder it was easy with 10 trucks running away like that. What silly things trucks are. Now, there might have been an accident. Meanwhile, the guard had stopped Edward, who was pulling 3 coaches.
"Oh, hello, James. Shall I help you?"
"No, thank you, Edward. I'll pull them myself."
"Good. Don't let them beat you."
So James got ready. "Right." And off he went. "I can do it, I can do it. Shh, 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 shh. I can do it, I can do it. Shh, 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 shh. I can do it, I can do it. Shh, 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 shh. Edward whistled after him.
"You're doing well, James. You're doing fine."
And James struggled up the hill with clouds of smoke and steam pouring from his funnel. "I've done it! Shh! I've done it! Shh! I've done it! Shh! I've done it! Shh! 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 Shh!" And James disappeared over the top. They reached their station safely, and James was resting in the yard when Edward went by.
"Well done, James. Well done."
Then James saw, walking towards him across the rails, the fat controller. "Oh dear, what will he say? What will he say?" But the fat controller was smiling.
"I was in Edward's train and saw everything. You've made the most troublesome trucks on the line behave. After that, you deserve to keep your red coat. Well done, James.
James and the Express. Sometimes Gordon and Henry slept in James's shed, and sometimes they talked of nothing but bootlaces. James tried to talk about engines who got shut up in tunnels and stuck on hills, but they wouldn't listen and went on talking and laughing. Gordon would say,
"You talk too much, little James. Now, a fine strong engine like me is something to talk about. I'm the only engine who can pull the express. When I'm not there, they need two engines. Think of that. I've pulled expresses for years and years, and never once lost my way. I seem to know the right line by instinct."
Now, every wise engine knows, of course, that it's the signalman who works the points to make engines run on the right lines, but Gordon was so proud that he'd forgotten. One morning he said,
"Wake up, James. It's nearly time for the express. What are you doing? Odd jobs? Oh, well, we all have to begin somewhere, don't we? Now run along and get my coaches, and don't be late now."
James brought Gordon's coaches to the station, and Gordon backed onto the train. He was showing off like anything.
"Make way there. Make way."
The fat controller was on the train with other important people. The guard blew his whistle, and Gordon started.
"Look at me now. Look at me now. Goodbye, little James. See you tomorrow. Look at me now."
And the coaches glided after him out of the station. James watched the train disappear around the curve. "Oh dear, I wish I could pull the express." And then he went back to work. He brought some more coaches to the platform and was just being uncoupled when he heard a mournful, quiet and there was Gordon trying to sidle into the station without being noticed. "Hello, Gordon. Is it tomorrow already, then?" Gordon didn't answer. He just let off steam feebly. "Well, did you lose your way, Gordon?"
"No, I didn't. It was lost for me. I was switched off the main line onto the loop, and I had to go all around and back again."
"Perhaps it was instinct, Gordon,
Oh!"
Meanwhile, all the passengers hurried to the booking office. "Look here, we want our money back."
"Yes, we want our money back."
"Yes, money back."
"Money back."
Everyone was making such a noise that the fat controller climbed onto a trolley and blew the guard's whistle.
Now, wait a moment, please. Wait a moment. Now, I promise you a new train if you'll all just keep quiet. Now, Gordon here can't do it, but perhaps James will pull it for us. James?
"Oh, yes, sir. I'll try." So James was coupled on, and everyone got in again.
Do your best, James.
"I will, sir." And off went James. Stations and bridges flashed by. The passengers leaned out of the windows and cheered, and soon they reached the terminus. Everyone said, "Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Thank you, James." And the fat controller said, "Well done, James. Would you like to pull the express sometimes?" "Oh, yes, please." Next day, When James came by, Gordon was pushing trucks in the yard.
Oh, hello, James. I like a bit of quiet work for a change, you know. I'm teaching these trucks manners. You did well with those coaches, I hear. Good. We'll show 'em.
And he gave his trucks a bump, and they went, oh, 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 oh. James and Gordon are now good friends. James sometimes takes the express to give Gordon a rest. Gordon never talks about bootlaces, and James never talks about getting stuck on hills, but they both often talk about trucks, and what fun it is making them go, oh, 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 oh. Thomas and the Guard. Thomas the tank engine is very proud of his branch line. He thinks it's the most important part of the whole railway. He has 2 coaches. They're old and need new paint, but he loves them very much. He calls them Annie and Clarabelle. Annie can only take passengers, but Clarabelle can take passengers, luggage, and the guard. As they run backwards and forwards along the line, Thomas sings them little songs, and Annie and Clarabelle sing too. When Thomas starts from the station, he sings, shh, 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 oh, come along, shh, 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 we're rather late, shh, 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 oh, come along, shh, 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 we're rather late, shh, 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 oh, come along, shh, 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 we're rather late, shh, 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 oh, come along, shh, shh, shh. And the coaches sing, we're coming along, we're coming along, we're coming along, we're coming along. They don't mind what Thomas says to them, because they know that he's trying to please the fat controller. And they know, too, that if Thomas is cross, he's not cross with them. He's cross with the engines on the main line who've made him late. One day, they had to wait for Henry's train. It was late. Thomas was getting crosser and crosser. How can I run my line properly if Henry's always late? He doesn't realize that the fat controller depends on me. And he whistled very impatiently. At last, Henry came along, and Thomas said, where have you been, lazy bones?
Oh, don't be cross, Thomas, please. My system is out of order. No one understands my case. You don't know what I suffer.
Oh, rubbish! You're too fat. You need exercise. Lots of people with piles of luggage got out of Henry's train, and they all climbed into Annie and Clarabelle. Thomas had to wait until they were ready. At last, the guard blew his whistle. And Thomas started off at once. The guard turned round to jump into his van, tripped over an old lady's umbrella, and fell flat on his face. By the time he'd picked himself up, Thomas, Annie, and Clarabelle were steaming out of the station. Thomas was in a hurry to get away. Shh, 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 shh. Oh, come along. Shh, shh, shh. Oh, come along. Shh, shh. Oh, come along. Shh, shh. Oh, come along. Shh, shh. But Clarabelle didn't want to come along. No. I've lost my nice guard. No. I've lost my nice guard. Annie tried to tell Thomas, we haven't a guard. We haven't a guard. We haven't a guard. But Thomas was hurrying. He wouldn't listen, and on he puffed. Shh, shh, shh. Oh, come along. Shh, shh. Oh, come along. Shh, shh. Oh, come along. Annie and Clarabelle tried to put on their brakes, but they couldn't without the guard, and they kept crying out, where is our guard? Where is our guard? Where is our guard? Oh, where is our guard? Thomas, please stop.
Thomas, please stop! Thomas, please stop! Thomas, please stop!" But Thomas didn't stop until they came to a signal, and the signal said, "Stop!" Thomas was very cross, and he said to his driver, "Oh, bother that signal! What's the matter?" And Thomas's driver said, "Well, I don't know. The guard will tell us in a minute, Thomas." They waited and waited, but the guard didn't come. Thomas got even crosser. "Where is the guard?" Annie and Clarabelle knew, and they were crying, "We've left him behind. We've left him behind. Yes, we left him behind. We left him behind." The driver, the fireman, and the passengers looked, and there was the guard running as fast as he could along the line with his flags in one hand and his whistle in the other. Everybody cheered him. He was very hot, so he sat down and had a drink and told them all about it. Thomas was very sorry. I'm very sorry, Mr. Guard." "Oh, it wasn't your fault, Thomas. It was an old lady's umbrella. Look, the signal's down. Let's make up for lost time. Come on." Annie and Clarabelle were so pleased to have their guard again that they sang to Thomas, "As fast as you like, as fast as you like. Yes, as fast as you like, as fast as you like." And Thomas went as fast as he could. And they reached the end of the line quicker than ever before. Thomas goes fishing. Thomas's branch line has a station by a river. As he rumbles over the bridge, he often sees people fishing. Sometimes they stand quietly by their lines. Sometimes they actually jerk fish out of the water. Thomas often wanted to stay and watch, but his driver said, "No, Thomas. What would the fat controller say if we were late? Thomas thought it would be lovely to stop by the river. "I should like to go fishing." Every time he met another engine, he would say, "I should like to go fishing." They all answered, "Ha! Engines don't go fishing, sure." But that made Thomas impatient, and he would say, "Ha! Silly stick in the muds." Thomas generally had to take in water at the station by the river. One day he stopped as usual, and his fireman put the pipe from the water tower into his tank. Then he turned the tap on, but it was out of order and no water came. Thomas said to his driver, "Oh, bother! Oh, bother! Oh, I am thirsty." "Oh, never mind, Thomas. We'll get some water from the river." They found a bucket and some rope and went to the bridge. Then the driver let the bucket down to the water. The bucket was old and had 5 holes in it, so they had to fill it, pull it up, and empty it into Thomas's tank as quickly as they could. Thomas's fireman sang, "There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza." But the driver said, "Never mind about Liza. You empty that bucket before you spill the water over me. Go on." At last they finished, and Thomas started off. "Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, 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 shh." And Annie and Clarabelle ran happily behind. "That's very much better. That's very much better. That's very much better. That's very much better." They puffed along the valley and were in the tunnel when Thomas began to feel a pain in his boiler.
while steam hissed from his safety valve in an alarming way. Thomas's driver said, "Oh, there's too much steam." And the fireman opened the tap in the feed pipe to let more water into the boiler, but none came. Thomas groaned. Oh dear, I'm gonna burst. Oh, I'm gonna burst. They damped down his fire and struggled on, but Thomas was in a terrible state. "I've got such a pain. I've got such a pain." Just outside the last station, they stopped, uncoupled Annie and Clarabel, and ran Thomas, who was still hissing fit to burst, onto a siding right out of the way. Then, while the guard telephoned for an engine inspector and the fireman was putting out the fire, the driver wrote notices in large letters, which he hung on Thomas in front and behind. "Danger. Keep away." Soon the inspector and the fat controller arrived.
"Oh, cheer up, Thomas. We'll soon put you right, yes."
The driver told them what had happened, and the inspector said,
Oh, so the feed pipe is blocked, eh? Well, I'll just look in the tanks."
He climbed up and peered in. Then he came down and said to the fat controller,
Excuse me, sir, but look in the tank, will you, and tell me what you can see?" "Oh, yes, certainly, Inspector. Certainly."
He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise.
Well, I never, Inspector. Can you see fish? Goodness gracious me. How did the fish get in there, driver?
Thomas's driver scratched his head.
We must have fished them from the river.
And he told them about the bucket. The fat controller laughed.
Well, Thomas, oh dear, so you and your driver have been fishing, eh? But fish don't suit you, do they? No, we must get them out.
So the driver and the fireman fetched rods and nets, and they all took turns at fishing in Thomas's tank. When they'd caught all the fish, the station master gave them some potatoes. The driver borrowed a frying pan, while the fireman made a fire beside the line and did the cooking. Then they all had a lovely picnic supper of fish and chips. The fat controller finished first.
Yes. That was good. Very good indeed. But fish don't suit you, Thomas, do they? So you mustn't do it again.
And Thomas said, "No, sir, I won't. Engines don't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable." Thomas, Terence, and the Snow. Autumn was changing the leaves from green to brown. The fields were changing too, from yellow stubble to brown earth. As Thomas puffed along, he heard a tractor at work. One day, stopping for a signal, he saw the tractor close by. The tractor looked over the fence at Thomas and said,
"Hello, I'm Terence. I'm plowing."
"I'm Thomas. I'm pulling a train." "Oh, what ugly wheels you've got."
"They're not ugly. They're caterpillar tracks. I can go anywhere with my tracks. I don't need rails.
I don't want to go anywhere. I like my rails, thank you. And off went Thomas. Shh, 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 shh. Winter came, and with it dark heavy clouds full of snow. Thomas's driver said, I don't like it. A heavy fall is coming. I hope it doesn't stop us. But Thomas saw that the snow was melting on the rails, and he said, Oh, this is soft stuff. There's nothing to it. Ha! And he puffed on, feeling cold but confident. They finished their journey safely, but the country was covered, and the rails were two dark lines standing out in the white snow. The driver said, You'll need your snowplough for the next journey, Thomas. Yes. Snowplough? Oh, snowplough? Oh, snow is silly soft stuff. It won't stop me. Now, just you listen to me, young Thomas. We are going to fix your snowplough on, and I want no nonsense, please. The snowplough was heavy and uncomfortable, and made Thomas cross. He shook it and he banged it, and when they got back it was so damaged that the driver had to take it off. You're a very naughty engine, Thomas. And he shut the shed door for the night. Next morning both driver and fireman came early and worked hard to mend the snowplough, but they couldn't make it fit properly. It was time for the first train. Thomas was pleased. I shan't have to wear it. I shan't have to wear it. I didn't need that stupid old thing yesterday, and I shan't need it today. Snow can't stop me. Shh, 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 and he rushed off into the tunnel, thinking how clever he was. At the other end he saw a heap of snow fallen from the sides of the cutting. Ha ha ha! Silly old snow! Silly old snow! Look out! I'm coming! I'm coming! Ooh! 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 Oh! Cinders and ashes! I'm stuck! And he was. The driver said, Back, Thomas! Back! Thomas tried, but his wheels spun and he couldn't move. More snow fell and piled up around him. The guard went back for help, while the driver, fireman and passengers tried to dig the snow away. But as fast as they dug, more snow slipped down, until Thomas was nearly buried. Thomas was very upset. Oh, my wheel and coupling rods! Oh, I shall have to stop here till I'm frozen. Oh, 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 what a silly little engine I am. And Thomas began to cry. And a bus came and took all his passengers away, and Thomas felt very lonely and very sad when he heard a noise in the tunnel. Yes, it was Terence, and he came chugging out of the tunnel.
Hello, Thomas. No, don't worry. I'll soon get you out.
He pulled the empty coaches away and came back for Thomas. Thomas's wheels were clear, but still spun helplessly when he tried to move. Terence tugged and slipped and tugged. At last, he dragged Thomas into the tunnel. Thomas was very grateful.
Thank you, Terence. Thank you. Your caterpillar tracks are really splendid.
They can take me anywhere, Thomas.
And Thomas's driver said, I hope you'll be sensible now, Thomas.
I'll try to be. I'll try to be.
And Thomas puffed off home. Thomas and Bertie. One day, Thomas was waiting at the junction when a bus came into the yard. Thomas said to the bus,
Hello, who are you?
What's that? Oh, I'm Bertie. Who are you?
I'm Thomas. I run this line.
Oh, so you're Thomas, are you? Oh, yes. I remember now. You stuck in the snow, didn't you? I took your passengers and Terence pulled you out, didn't he? Well, I've come to help you with your passengers today. This made Thomas very cross indeed, and he let off steam.
Help me! Help me! Oh, wow! I can go faster than you.
You can't.
I can.
You can't.
I can.
All right, I'll race you. The drivers agreed. The station master said, Right, are you ready? Steady. Go! And they were off. Thomas never could go fast at first, and Bertie drew in front. Thomas was running well, but he didn't hurry. Annie and Clarabel were rather anxious.
Why don't you go fast? Why don't you go fast?
Why don't you go fast? Why don't you go fast?
But Thomas said,
Shh, 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 shh. Wait and see. Wait and see. Shh, shh, shh. Wait and see. Shh, shh, shh. Wait and see.
He's a long way ahead. He's a long way ahead.
He's a long way ahead. He's a long way ahead.
But Thomas didn't mind. He remembered the level crossing. There was Bertie fuming at the gates while they sailed gaily through.
Ha ha! Goodbye, Bertie!
The road left the railway and went through a village, so they couldn't see Bertie. They stopped at the station, and Thomas called out,
Quickly, please! Quickly, please!
Everybody got out quickly, and the guard whistled, and off they went. Thomas sang,
Come along, shh, shh, come along, shh, shh, come along, shh, shh, come along, shh, shh.
And Annie and Clarabel sang,
We're coming along, we're coming along.
We're coming along, we're coming along. Hurry, 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 shh, 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 shh. Hurry, 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 shh, 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 shh. Hurry, hurry. Oh!
For there, straight ahead, was Bertie crossing the bridge over the railway, and he was tooting triumphantly on his horn. Ah, 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 ah. Thomas groaned.
Oh, bother! Oh, bother!
Annie and Clarabel wailed.
He's a long way in front, a long way in front.
It's a long way in front, a long way in front.
But Thomas's driver said, Now steady, Thomas. We'll beat Bertie yet.
We'll beat Bertie yet. We'll beat Bertie yet.
We'll beat Bertie yet. We'll beat Bertie yet. We'll do it, we'll do it, we'll do it, we'll do it. Shh, 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 shh. We'll do it, we'll do it. Oh, bother, there's a station.
And as he stopped, he heard something go, ah, 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 ah. Goodbye, Thomas. You must be very tired. Sorry I can't stop. We buses have to work, you know. Ta-ra. The next station was by the river. They got there quickly, but the signal was up. Thomas thought, "Oh dear, we've lost now." But he felt better after a drink. Then James rattled through with the goods train, and the signal dropped, showing that the line was clear. "Hurrah! We're off! Hurrah! We're off!" Shh, 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 shh. And as they rumbled over the bridge, they heard a very impatient "ah, ah, 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 ah." And there was Bertie waiting at the red traffic lights, while cars and lorries crossed the narrow bridge in the opposite direction. But as soon as the lights turned green, Bertie was off with a roar, and soon he and Thomas were racing side by side up a valley. The passengers in the train and in the bus got very excited and started cheering and shouting. And now Thomas reached his full speed, and foot by foot, yard by yard, he gained on Bertie till they were running level. Bertie tried hard, but Thomas was too fast. Slowly but surely he drew ahead till he plunged into a tunnel, leaving Bertie toiling far behind. Thomas was very pleased. "I've done it! Yes, I've done it! I've done it! Yes, I've done it! Yes, I've done it!" So were Annie and Clarabelle. "We've done it, hooray! We've done it, hooray! We've done it, hooray! We've done it, hooray!" And on they went to the last station. The passengers gave Thomas 3 cheers and told the station master and the porters all about the race. When Bertie came in, they gave him 3 cheers too. And Bertie said, "Whew, that was well done, Thomas. That was fun. But to beat you over that hill, I should have to grow wings and be an aeroplane." Thomas and Bertie now keep each other very busy. Bertie finds people in the villages who want to go by train and takes them to Thomas, while Thomas brings people to the station for Bertie to take home. They often talk about their race, but Bertie's passengers don't like being bounced about like peas in a frying pan, and the fat controller has warned Thomas about what happens to engines who race at dangerous speeds. So although, between you and me, they'd like to have another race, I don't think they ever will.
Henry and the Elephant. Henry and Gordon were lonely when Thomas left the yard to run his branch line. They missed him very much. They had more work to do. They couldn't wait in the shed till it was time and find their coaches at the platform. Oh no. They had to get the coaches themselves, and they didn't like that. And then one day a circus came to town, and the engines soon forgot that they were tired. They all wanted to shunt the special trucks and coaches, and they were dreadfully jealous of James when the fat controller told him to pull the train when the circus went away. However, they soon forgot about the animals, as they had plenty of work to do. One morning, Henry was told to take some workmen to a tunnel, which was blocked. He grumbled away and found 2 trucks to carry the workmen and their tools, and he pushed the trucks along the line and muttered to himself,
"Pushing trucks, shh, shh, shh. Pushing trucks, shh, shh, shh. Pushing trucks, shh, shh, shh. Pushing trucks, shh, shh, shh."
They came to the tunnel and stopped outside. They tried to look through it, but it was quite dark. No daylight shone from the other end. The workmen took their tools and went inside. Suddenly, they all shouted, "Oh! Oh! Oh! Eh! Oh! Oh! Ah! and they came running out of the tunnel. The foreman was outside the tunnel having a cup of tea, and they said to him, "Look, we went to the blockage and started to dig it away, but it grunted and moved." And the foreman said, "Go on, get out of it. That's rubbish." "No, it isn't rubbish. It's big and alive, and we're not going in there again. So there." And the foreman said, "All right then, I'll go in. I'll ride in a truck, and Henry shall push this here blockage out of the way." And Henry said,
"Oh, shoo, shoo, shoo."
He hated tunnels. He'd been shut up in one once, and this was worse. There was something big and alive inside the tunnel. Henry said,
I don't want to go in."
And Henry's driver said, "Well, neither do I, Henry, but we must. We've got to clear the line. Now, come on, Henry. There's a good lad." And Henry puffed slowly into the dark, dark tunnel.
"Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, what's that?"
Henry had bumped into something enormous. Henry's driver shut off steam at once. "What is it, Henry?"
"Oh, I don't know, but I can't move it. It's moving me. It's pushing me backwards. Oh, help!"
And slowly out of the tunnel came first Henry, then the trucks, and last of all, pushing hard and rather cross, came a big elephant. The foreman said, "Well, I never. It's an elephant from the circus." Henry's driver put on his brakes, and a man ran to telephone for the keeper. The elephant stopped pushing and came towards them. They gave him some sandwiches and cake, so he forgot he was cross and remembered he was hungry. He drank 3 buckets of water without stopping, and was just going to drink another one when Henry let off steam. That frightened the elephant. It went whoosh and squirted the water all over Henry by mistake. Poor Henry. He didn't like that at all. The elephant's keeper came and took him away, and the workmen jumped into the trucks, laughing at their adventure. And Henry pushed them home, hissing to himself,
"An elephant pushed me. Shh, shh, shh. An elephant whooshed me. Shh, shh, shh. An elephant pushed me. Shh, shh, shh. An elephant whooshed me. Shh, 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 shh."
In the shed, he told Gordon and James about the elephant, and I'm sorry to say that instead of laughing and telling him not to be silly, they looked sad and said,
"Oh, you poor engine. Oh, you have been badly treated, haven't you?
Tenders and turntables. The big stations at both ends of the line each have a turntable. The Fat Controller had them made so that Edward, Henry, Gordon and James can be turned round. It is dangerous for tender engines to go fast backwards. Tank engines like Thomas don't need turntables. They can go just as well backwards as forwards. But if you heard Gordon talking a short while ago, you would have thought that the Fat Controller had given him a tender just to show how important he was. He said to Thomas,
"Oh, but you don't understand, little Thomas. We tender engines have a position to keep up. It doesn't matter where you go, but we are important. And for the Fat Controller to make us shunt on dirty sidings, well, it's not the proper thing."
And Gordon puffed away in a dignified manner. Thomas chuckled. "Poor old Gordon, he is upset." And off he went with the two coaches, Annie and Clarabel. Gordon took his coaches and passengers to the terminus and waited until they'd all got out. And then he shunted the coaches to another platform. He was in a bad temper.
"It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful."
And he ran backwards to the turntable. The turntable was in a windy place close to the sea. It was only just big enough for Gordon, and if he was not on it just right, he put it out of balance and made it difficult to turn. But today Gordon was in a bad temper, and the wind was blowing fiercely. Gordon's driver tried to make him stop in the right place, but Gordon wasn't trying. He would not stop in the right place. At last, Gordon's driver said, Oh, I give up. All right then, Gordon. We can't turn you like this because your tender upsets the balance. Now, if you were a nice tank engine, you'd be all right. But you're not. You're a tender engine, and we can't turn you around, so you'll have to pull the next train backwards. So there. When Gordon came to the platform, some little boys shouted out, "Hey, look! Come quick! Here's a new tank engine!" "It isn't, silly. It's only Gordon, back to front." "Oh, so it is. What a swizz." And Gordon said, "Oh, and he puffed off to the junction. Thomas was waiting at the junction. "Oh, hello, Gordon. Playing at tank engines then? Sensible engine. Take my advice. Scrap that tender of yours and have a nice banker like mine, hmm?" And Gordon said, "Oh." Then James came along on his way to the turntable. "Whoa! Hello, Gordon. Got stuck on the turntable then, are you?"
"You be careful, James. Otherwise you might get stuck too."
No, I won't get stuck. I'm not as fat as you are. Now you just watch me." And James went along to the turntable and stopped on just the right place to balance the table. It could swing easily. The fireman turned the handle and James turned, much too easily. The wind caught him and puffed him round and round like a top. He couldn't stop. He was spinning round and round when Gordon came along.
Well, James. What are you doing? Playing roundabouts, hmm?"
At last, the wind died down, and James stopped turning and rolled off the table to the engine shed, feeling very, very giddy. That night, the three engines had an indignation meeting. Gordon did most of the talking, though.
It's shameful to treat tender engines like this. It really is. Henry gets drenched by elephants, James spins round like a top, and I have to go backwards, and everyone laughs at us. Not only that, the fat controller makes us shunt in dirty sidings. It's dreadful. It's dreadful. Now listen, we will act tomorrow. The fat controller will look silly. Now this is what we'll do. In the morning, when the driver and the fireman come,
Trouble in the shed. The fat controller sat in his office and listened. The fat controller frowned and said, "Oh, what a nuisance passengers are! How can I possibly work with all this noise? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear!" "Yes, what is it?" It was the station master, looking very worried. "There's trouble in the shed, sir. Henry is sulking. There is no train, and the passengers are saying that this is a bad railway." "Indeed, really? We cannot allow that. Now, will you quieten the passengers, please, and I will go and speak to Henry." The fat controller found Henry, Gordon, and James looking sulky. "Now, come along, Henry. It's time your train was ready." But Henry wouldn't answer. It was Gordon who said,
Henry's not going, so there, and neither are James or I. We won't shunt like common tank engines. We're important tender engines, if you don't mind. You fetch our coaches for us, and we'll pull them. But we won't shunt. Tender engines don't shunt. So there."
And all three engines let off steam in a cheeky way. Psh, 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 psh. And the fat controller said, "Oh, indeed. Engines on my railway do as they're told. I'll go and find Edward." Edward was shunting. "I say, Edward, leave those tracks, will you please? I want you to push coaches for me in the yard."
"Oh, thank you, sir. That will be a nice change."
"That's a good engine. Off you go then."
So Edward found coaches for the three engines, and that day the trains ran as usual. But when the fat controller came next morning, Edward looked unhappy. Gordon came past, clanking and hissing very rudely.
"Why, bless me, what a noise!"
"I know. They all hiss at me, sir. They say tender engines don't shunt. And last night they said I had black wheels. I haven't. Have I, sir?"
"No, Edward, of course you haven't. You've got nice blue ones, and I'm proud of you. Tender engines do shunt, but all the same, you'd be happier in your own yard. We need a tank engine here."
And the fat controller went to an engine workshop and saw all sorts of tank engines. At last he saw a smart little green engine.
Yes, I think so. That's the one. I say there, if I choose you, will you work hard?
Oh, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir."
That's a good engine. I'll call you, Percy. Yes, Percy. Do you like that, Percy?
"Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir."
So the fat controller drove Percy back to the yard and introduced him to Edward. Percy soon learned what he had to do, and they had a happy afternoon. And then Henry came by, hissing as usual. But Percy just went... That really frightened Henry. He jumped and ran away. Edward laughed and said, "Oh, how beautifully you whooshed him, Percy. I can't make a noise like that."
"Oh, that's nothing. You should hear them in the workshops. You have to make a noise like that to be heard."
Next morning, Thomas arrived.
"Hello, Edward."
"Oh, hello, Thomas. The Fat Controller sent for me. I expect he wants help."
"Oh, he does indeed, Thomas. Here he comes now."
Well done, Thomas. You have been quick. Now listen, Henry, Gordon and James are sulking. They say they won't shunt like common tank engines, so I've shut them up. And I want you both to run the line.
"Common tank engines, indeed. We'll show them."
Well done, Thomas. And Percy here will help too, won't you, Percy?
"Oh, sir. Yes, sir, please, sir."
Edward and Thomas pulled the trains. They started at opposite ends and whistled to each other as they passed. There were fewer trains, but the passengers didn't mind. They knew the three other engines were having a lesson. Henry, Gordon and James stayed shut in the shed and were cold, lonely and miserable. They wished now they hadn't been so silly. Percy runs away. Henry, Gordon and James were shut up for several days. At last, the Fat Controller opened the shed.
Ah, now then, I hope you're sorry and understand you're not so important after all. Thomas, Edward and Percy have worked the line very nicely. Now they need a change, and I will let you out if you promise to be good. Now, will you?
Yes, sir. We will.
Yes, sir. We will.
Yes, sir. We will. That's right. But please remember, this no shunting nonsense must stop.
And the Fat Controller told Edward, Thomas and Percy that they could go and play on the branch line for a few days. They ran off happily and found Annie and Clarabelle at the junction. The two coaches were so pleased to see Thomas again, and he took them out for a run at once. Edward and Percy played with the trucks and pushed them into their proper sidings. The trucks made a terrible fuss. They went, "Oh, oh, 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 stop, 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 stop." But the two engines laughed. And went on shunting till the trucks were tidily arranged. Next, Edward took some empty trucks to the quarry, and Percy was left alone. Percy didn't mind that a bit. He liked watching trains and being cheeky to the engines. He would make noises at them as they went by. Gordon, Henry and James got very cross. After a while, he took some trucks over the main line to another siding. When they were tidy, he ran onto the main line again and waited for the signalman to set the points so that he could cross back to the yard. Edward had warned Percy,
"Look, be careful, Percy, on the main line. Whistle to tell the signalman that you're there."
But Percy didn't remember to whistle, and the signalman was so busy he forgot Percy. Bells rang in the signal box. The man answered, saying the line was clear, and set the signals for the next train. Percy waited and waited. The points were still against him. He looked along the main line and saw something that made him go, for rushing straight towards him was Gordon with the express. Gordon went, his driver shut off steam and applied the brakes. Percy's driver turned on full steam. Back, Percy, back! But Percy's wheels wouldn't turn quickly. Gordon was coming so fast that it seemed he couldn't stop. Percy just shut his eyes and waited for the crash. His driver and fireman jumped out. Gordon yelled, "Oh, get out of my way! Get out of my way! Oh!" Percy opened his eyes. Gordon had stopped, with Percy's buffers a few inches from his own. Percy was very, very frightened. He began to move backwards. "I won't stay here, I'll run away. Shh, 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 shh. I won't stay here, I'll run away. Shh, 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 shh. I won't stay here, I'll run away. Shh, 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 shh. He was soon clear of the station and running as fast as he could. He whistled through Edward Station, and he ran right up Gordon's Hill without stopping. He was getting tired and wanted to stop, but he couldn't. He had no driver to shut off steam and to apply the brakes. Oh dear, I shall have to run till my wheels wear out. Shh, 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 shh. I want to stop. Shh, 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 shh. I want to stop. Shh, 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 shh. I want to stop. Just then he passed another signal box, and the signalman called out, "I know just what you want, little Percy." He set the points, and Percy puffed wearily onto a nice empty siding, and at the end of the siding was a big bank of earth. Percy was too tired now to care where he went. "I want to stop. Shh, 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 shh. I want to stop. Shh, 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 shh. Oh, I have stopped." Yes, the big bank of earth had stopped Percy. His bunker was buried in it. The workmen came to dig him out. "Never mind, Percy. You'll feel better after a drink." Presently, Gordon arrived.
"Oh, well done, Percy. You know, you started so quickly that you stopped a nasty accident."
Oh, I'm sorry I was cheeky, Gordon. You were clever to stop.
Percy now works in the yard and finds coaches for the trains. He is still cheeky. He's that sort of engine. But he's always most careful when he goes on the main line. Henry's special coal. Henry was feeling very sorry for himself. He said to James,
"You know, James, I suffer dreadfully, and no one cares."
James said, "All rubbish, Henry. You don't work hard enough." Henry was bigger than James, but smaller than Gordon. Sometimes he could pull trains very well, but sometimes he had no strength at all. The fat controller spoke to him.
"You're too expensive, Henry. You've had lots of new parts and new paint too, but they've done you no good. If we can't make you better, well, we must get another engine instead of you. Sorry."
This made Henry, his driver, and his fireman very sad. The fat controller was waiting when Henry came to the platform. He had taken off his hat and coat and put on overalls. He climbed to the footplate, and Henry started. Henry's fireman said, "You know, sir, Henry is a bad steamer. I build up his fire, but it doesn't give enough heat." Henry tried very hard, but it was no good. He had not enough steam, and they stopped outside Edward's station. Henry was very upset. He said,
Oh, show. I shall have to go away.
So Edward took charge of the train, and Henry stopped behind. The fat controller said to the fireman,
"Look here, what do you think is wrong with Henry,
"Well, sir, if you don't mind my saying so, the coal is wrong. We've had a poor lot lately, and today it's worse. The other engines can manage. They've got big fireboxes, but Henry's is small and can't make the heat. Now, with Welsh coal, he'd be different, see?"
"Oh, Welsh coal, eh? Well, it's expensive, but Henry must have a fair chance. James shall go and fetch some Welsh coal."
When the Welsh coal came, Henry's driver and fireman were excited.
This is fine now. We'll show them, Henry, old fellow, eh?"
And they carefully oiled all his joints and polished his brass till it shone like gold. Henry's fire had already been lit, so the fireman made it carefully. He put large lumps of coal like a wall round the outside. Then he covered the glowing middle part with smaller lumps. Henry said,
Hey, you're spoiling my fire.
"No, we're not, Henry. You wait and see. We'll have a roaring fire just when we want it." And he was right. When Henry reached the platform, the water was boiling nicely, and he had to let off steam to show how happy he was.
Oh,
He made such a noise that the fat controller came out to see him.
"Hello, Henry. How are you,
Oh, I feel fine, thank you, sir. Fine, oh, fine.
Well done, Henry. Have you got a good fire, driver?" "Never better, sir, and plenty of steam." "Good. Well, no record breaking now, and don't push Henry too hard." "Bless you, sir. Henry don't need any pushing. I'll have to hold him back."
And off they went. Henry had a lovely day. He had never felt so well in all his life. He wanted to go fast, but his driver wouldn't let him.
"Steady, old fella. Steady now, Henry. There's plenty of time."
They arrived early at the junction, and not long afterwards Thomas came puffing in. Henry said,
Hello, lazy bones. Where have you been? I can't wait for dawdling tank engines like you. Goodbye.
Thomas was astonished. He said to Annie and Clarabel as Henry disappeared, "Oh, wow, have you ever seen anything like it?" And both Annie and Clarabel agreed that they never had. The Flying Kipper. Lots of ships use the harbour at the big station by the sea. The passenger ships have spotless paint and shining brass. Other ships, though smaller and dirtier, are important too. They take coal, machinery, and other things abroad and bring back meat, timber, and things we need. Fishing boats also come there. They unload their fish on the quay. Some of it is sent to shops in the town, and some goes in a special train to other places far away. The railwaymen call this train the Flying Kipper. One winter evening, Henry's driver said, "Well, we'll be out early tomorrow, Henry. We've got to take the Flying Kipper. Now, don't tell Gordon, but I think that if we pull the Kipper nicely, the fat controller will let us pull the express." Henry was very excited.
Oh, I say, oh, hurrah, hurrah, that will be lovely.
He was ready at 5 o'clock. There was snow and frost. Men hustled and shouted, loading the vans with crates of fish. The last door banged. The guard showed his green lamp, and Henry started off. But his wheels slipped on the icy rails. Henry got cross with the vans.
Come on, come on. Don't be silly, don't be silly, don't be silly, don't be silly, don't be silly. Come on, come on. Don't be silly, 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 don't be silly.
The vans shuddered and groaned. Bull, 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 bull. All right, 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 all right.
That is better, 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 that is better.
And the train began to gather speed. Thick clouds of smoke and steam poured from Henry's funnel into the cold air, and when his fireman put on more coal, the fire's light shone brightly on the snow around. Henry went faster and faster.
Hurry, 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 hurry.
They whooshed under bridges and clattered through stations, green signal lights showing as they passed. They were going well. The light grew better, and a yellow signal appeared ahead. Henry thought,
Distance signal up. That means caution.
Henry's driver shut off the steam and prepared to stop. But the home signal was down, and so he said, "All clear, Henry. Go on, away we go." They couldn't know the points from the main line to the siding were frozen, and that the signal had been set at danger. A fall of snow had forced it down. A goods train waited in the siding to let the Flying Kipper pass. The driver and the fireman were drinking cocoa in the brake van. The guard pulled out his watch and he said, you know, the Flying Kipper is due." The fireman said, "Who cares about the Flying Kipper? This is good cocoa." The driver got up and said, "Hey, come on, fireman, back to our engine."
"But I haven't finished my cocoa yet."
Then suddenly there was a terrible crash. The brake van broke, the three men shot in the air like jacks in the box and landed in the snow outside. Henry's driver and fireman jumped clear before the crash. The fireman fell head first into a heap of snow, and he kicked his legs about so much the driver couldn't pull him out. Henry was sprawled over on his side. He looked very surprised.
"Oh, hello, Oh, what happened? Shh! Oh, shh! Oh, shh!
The goods train fireman was very cross. He waved his empty mug in the air. "You clumsy great engine! The best cup of cocoa I've ever had, and you bump into me and spill it all." The driver said, "Never mind your cocoa, fireman. Run and telephone the breakdown gang." The gang soon cleared the line, but they had hard work lifting Henry onto the rails. The fat controller came to see him. "Well, Henry, what have you got to say for yourself,
Oh, dear, sir. Shh, oh, sir, the signal was down, sir. Honestly, it was. Honestly."
Cheer up, Henry. It wasn't your fault. Ice and snow caused the accident. I'm sending you to Crewe, a fine place for sick engines. They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox, and then you'll feel a different engine, and you won't need special coal any more. Now, won't that be nice,
Oh, yes, sir. Shh, yeah. Yes, sir. Shh, yes.
Henry liked being at Crewe, but was glad to come home. A crowd of people waited to see him arrive in his new shape. He looked so splendid and strong that they gave him 3 cheers. And Henry said,
"Thank you. Thank you. Thank you."
Gordon's whistle. Gordon was cross, very cross.
Why should that Henry have a new shape? A shape good enough for me is good enough for him, surely. He goes gallivanting off to Crewe, leaving us to do his work. Oh, it's disgraceful, it really is. It's disgraceful. It's not good enough. And there's another thing. Henry whistles too much. No respectable engine ever whistles loudly at stations. It's not that it's wrong to whistle at stations, but we just don't do it. We just don't do it.
Poor Henry didn't feel happy any more. He said,
"Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear."
But Percy said to him, "Never mind, Henry. I'm glad you're home again, and, quite frankly, I like your whistling."
"Oh, thank you, Percy. Thank you, Percy. My friend."
Next morning, Gordon was leaving the shed, and he called out to Henry,
"Goodbye, Henry. Goodbye, Henry. We are glad to have you with us again, but be sure and remember what I said about whistling. Now, don't forget."
Later on, Henry took a slow train and presently stopped at Edward's station. Edward said, "Oh, hello, Henry. You look splendid. I was pleased to hear your happy whistle yesterday."
"Oh, thank you, Edward. Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear something?"
Edward listened, and far away, but getting louder and louder, was the sound of an engine's whistle. Edward said,
"Well, it sounds like Gordon, and it ought to be Gordon. But Gordon never whistles like that."
It was Gordon. He came rushing down the hill at a tremendous rate. He didn't look at Henry, and he didn't look at Edward. He was purple in the boiler, and whistling fit to burst. He screamed through the station and disappeared. "Well, what do you think of that, Henry?"
It isn't wrong to whistle, you see, but we just don't do it, eh?
And Henry told Edward what Gordon had said. Meanwhile, Gordon screeched along the line. People came out of their houses. Sirens started. 5 fire brigades got ready to go out. Horses upset their carts, and old ladies dropped their parcels. At the big station, the noise was awful. Gordon went on whistling and whistling and whistling. Porters and passengers held their ears. The fat controller held his ears too. He gave a lot of orders, but no one could hear them, and Gordon went on whistling. At last, the fat controller clambered into Gordon's cab.
"Oh, take him away! Take him away! And stop that noise! Oh, dear! Oh, dear!"
Poor Gordon, he couldn't stop whistling, and he puffed sadly away. He whistled as he crossed the points. He whistled on the siding. He was still whistling as the last deafened passenger left the station. 2 fitters came and climbed up onto Gordon, and with a hammer they knocked his whistle valve back into place. And there was silence. Gordon slunk into the shed. He was glad it was empty. The others came in later, and Henry said quietly, and to no one in particular,
It isn't wrong, you know, but we just don't do it.
No one mentioned whistles.
Percy and the Trousers. On cold mornings, Percy often saw workmen wearing scarves. "My funnel's cold, my funnel's cold," he would puff. "I want a scarf, I want a scarf." "Rubbish, Percy," said Henry one day. "Engines don't want scarves." "Engines with proper funnels do," said Percy in his cheeky way. "You've only got a small one." Henry snorted. He was proud of his short, neat funnel. Just then a train came in, and Percy, still puffing, "I want a scarf, I want a scarf," went to take the coaches to their siding. His driver always shut off steam just outside the station, and Percy would try to surprise the coaches by coming in as quietly as he could. 2 porters were taking some luggage across the line. They had a big load and were walking backwards to see that none fell off the trolley. Percy arrived so quietly that the porters didn't hear him until the trolley was on the line. The porters jumped clear. The trolley disappeared with a crunch. Boxes and bags burst in all directions. "Oh, groaned Percy and stopped. Sticky streams of red and yellow jam trickled down his face. A top hat hung on his lampine. Clothes, hats, boots, shoes, skirts and blouses stuck to his front. A pair of striped trousers coiled lovingly round his funnel. They were grey no longer. Angry passengers looked at their broken trunks. The fat controller seized the top hat. "Mine," he said crossly. "Percy," he shouted, "look at this." "Yes, sir. I am, sir," a muffled voice replied. "My best trousers, too," Yes, sir, please, sir, said Percy nervously. I am very cross, said the Fat Controller. We must pay the passengers for their spoiled clothes. My hash is dented and my trousers are ruined, all because you will come into the station as if you were playing Grandmother's Steps with the coaches. The driver unwound the trousers. The Fat Controller waved them away. Percy wanted a scarf. He shall have my trousers for a scarf. They will keep him warm. Percy wore them back to the yard. He doesn't like scarves now.
Henry's Sneeze. One lovely Saturday morning, Henry was puffing along. The sun shone, the fields were green, the birds sang. Henry had plenty of steam in his boiler, and he was feeling happy.
I feel so well, I feel so well, I feel so well, I feel so well.
Just ahead, Henry saw some boys on a bridge, and he thought he would whistle to them and say, "Hello."
Hello, boys! Hello! Hello, boys! Hello, Ooh! 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 That hurt!
Yes, it did hurt, for the boys didn't wave back at Henry and say hello. No, they dropped stones on him instead. They were silly, stupid boys who thought it would be fun to drop stones down his funnel. Some of the stones hit Henry's boiler and spoiled his paint, and one hit the fireman on the head as he was shoveling coal, and others broke the carriage windows. Henry was very upset.
Oh, it's a shame! It's a shame! It's a shame! It's a shame!
The coaches were upset too. They've broken our glass, they've broken our glass, they've broken our glass, they've broken our glass. The driver opened the first aid box, bandaged the fireman's head, and planned what he was going to do. They stopped the train, and the guard asked if any of the passengers were hurt. No one was hurt, but everyone was cross. They saw the fireman's bumped head and told him what to do for it. And they looked at Henry's paint, and someone said, "Look here, this is too much. Call the police." But Henry's driver said, "No, you leave it to Henry and me. We'll teach those lads a lesson." "Well, what will you do then?" "Well, can you keep a secret?" Yes. 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 Well then, Henry is going to sneeze at them. What? 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 Yes, Henry is going to sneeze at them. Look, Henry draws air in through his fire and puffs it out with smoke and steam. Well, when he puffs hard, the air blows ashes from his fire into the smoke box, and these ashes sometimes prevent him puffing properly. I mean, when your nose is blocked, you sometimes sneeze, don't you? Well, if Henry's smoke box is blocked, I can make air and steam blow the ashes through his funnel. We will do it at the bridge and startle those young fellow my lads. You see. So Henry puffed onto the terminus where he had a rest. Then he took the train back. Lots of people were waiting at the station just before the bridge. They wanted to see what would happen. Henry's driver said, "Well, that's all right, Henry. Now, he's got plenty of ashes. Now, keep all the windows shut until we've passed the bridge. Henry is as excited as we are. Aren't you, old fellow, eh?" And he patted Henry's boiler. Henry didn't answer. He was feeling just a bit stuffed up, but he went, "Oh, yeah, yeah." He was already feeling like sneezing. The guard waved his flag and blew his whistle. And they were off. Soon, in the distance, they saw the bridge. Yes, the boys were there, and they all had stones. Henry's driver said, "Are you ready then, Henry? Now, sneeze hard when I tell you. Ready? Steady. Now!" And he turned the handle, and Henry went, Smoke and steam and ashes spouted from his funnel. They went all over the bridge and all over the boys, who ran away smothered in soot and cinders. Henry's driver couldn't stop laughing. Well done, Henry. They won't drop stones on engines again. Oh dear, your coat is all black, but, well, we'll rub you down and paint your scratches out, and you'll be as good as new tomorrow. Henry has never again sneezed under a bridge. The Fat Controller doesn't like it. His smoke box is always cleaned in the yard while he's resting. He has now gone under more bridges than he can count, but from that day to this there have been no more boys with stones. Toby and the Stout Gentleman. Toby is a tram engine. He is short and sturdy. He has cowcatchers and side plates, and he doesn't look like a steam engine at all. He takes trucks from farms and factories to the main line, and the big engines take them to London and elsewhere. His tram line runs along roads and through fields and villages. Toby rings his bell cheerfully to everyone he meets. He has a coach called Henrietta, who has seen better days. She complains because she has few passengers. Toby is attached to Henrietta and always takes her with him, as he says, "Well, you never know. She might come in useful one day." But Henrietta is never very happy. "It's not fair. It's not fair at all. Just look at all those buses full of passengers, and I've got none. I remember the day when I used to be full of passengers, and have 9 trucks following behind me, but now there are only 3 or 4. Yes, it was sad, because now the farms and factories sent their goods mostly by lorry. Toby is always careful on the road. The cars, buses and lorries often have accidents. Toby hasn't had an accident for years, but the buses are crowded, and Henrietta is empty. It puzzles Toby. "I can't understand it. I can't understand it." People come to see Toby, and they come by bus, and stare at him, and laugh, and say, "Oh, isn't he quaint? Oh, yes, isn't he quaint?" They make Toby cross. One day a car stopped close by, and a little boy jumped out and called to his sister, "Come on, Bridget, Come on, Bridget, come on." And together they ran across to Toby. 2 ladies and a stout gentleman followed. The gentleman looked important, but nice. The children ran back. "Oh, come on, grandfather! Oh, come, grandfather! Do look at this engine!" And seizing his hands, they almost dragged him along. The stout gentleman said, "Well, well, 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 that's a tram engine, Stephen, a tram engine."
"Oh, may we go in it, grandfather? Oh, please, may we go in, please?"
"Oh, very well, all right."
And the stout gentleman and his family went for a ride to the junction. There they waited for Toby to take them back to their car, and the stout gentleman said to Toby,
"By the way, what is your name,
"Oh, Toby, sir."
"Oh, Toby, is it? Well, thank you, Toby. Thank you very much for a very nice ride."
"Thank you, sir. Thank you very much indeed, sir."
And Toby said to himself,
"Now, this gentleman is a gentleman who knows how to speak to engines."
The children came every day for a fortnight. Sometimes they rode with the guard, sometimes in empty trucks, and on the last day of all the driver invited them into his cab. All were sorry when they had to go away. Stephen and Bridget said, thank you very much indeed," to Toby, his driver, his fireman, and the guard. The stout gentleman gave them all a present, and Toby said,
"Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Yes. Don't forget, come again soon."
"Oh, we will, we will. Goodbye, goodbye."
"Goodbye."
And they waved until Toby was out of sight. The months passed. Toby had very few trucks and fewer passengers, and Toby's driver said to him,
"Well, this is our last day, Toby. The manager says we must close tomorrow."
And Toby puffed very sadly to his shed.
"Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear."
And he went off unhappily to sleep. Next morning the shed doors were flung open, and Toby woke with a start to see his fireman dancing a jig outside. The driver was very excited and waving a piece of paper.
"Wake up, Toby, me boy! Wake up and listen to this. It's a letter from the stout gentleman."
Toby listened, but I mustn't tell you any more, or I will spoil the next story. Thomas in Trouble. There is a line to a quarry at the end of Thomas's branch. It goes for some distance along the road. Thomas was always very careful here. One morning there was no one on the road, but a large policeman was sitting on the grass close to the line. He was shaking a stone from his boot. Thomas liked policemen. He had been a great friend of the constable who used to live in the village, but had just retired. Thomas expected that the new constable would be friendly too, and he called out to him, "Good morning, good morning, good morning." The policeman jumped and dropped his boot. He scrambled up and hopped round on one leg till he was facing Thomas. Thomas was sorry to see that he didn't look friendly at all. He was red in the face and very cross, and he was wobbling about, trying to keep his balance. And he said to Thomas,
"It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. That's what it is. I didn't sleep a wink last night, it was so quiet,
and now a blinking engine comes whistling suddenly right behind me. My first day in the country, too. Wish I'd never been transferred.
And he picked up his boot and hopped over to Thomas. Thomas said,
"Well, I'm very sorry, sir. I only said good morning."
The policeman grunted, and leaning against Thomas's buffer, he put his boot on. And then he drew himself up and pointed to Thomas.
Aha! Aha! Where's your cow-catcher then, eh? Where's your cow-catcher, huh?
"Oh, please, sir, I don't catch cows, sir."
Don't you try to be funny with me, young fella, me lad. Now, let's see.
And he took out his notebook, and he looked at Thomas's wheels.
Aha! Aha! No side plates either. No side plates and no cow-catcher. Engines going on public roads must have their wheels covered and a cow-catcher in front. And you haven't. Ha ha! And so you are dangerous to the public. So there.
Thomas's driver said, "Oh, look, that's rubbish, Constable. We've been along here hundreds of times and never had an accident."
Oh, have you? Then that makes it worse, don't it? I'll just have to make a note of that. A regular lawbreaker. That's what you are. A regular lawbreaker. I shall report this.
Thomas puffed slowly away. The fat controller was having breakfast when the telephone rang.
Oh, bother that telephone.
And he said to his wife,
"I'll be back in a minute. Oh, dear, 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 dear."
But when he came back, he said,
"Oh, bother, bother. I'm sorry, my dear, but Thomas is in trouble with the police. I must go down at once."
He gulped down his coffee and hurried from the room. The policeman was waiting at the station. The fat controller spoke to him at once, and a crowd collected. Other policemen came to see what was happening, and the fat controller argued with them too, but it was no good. The policeman said
that the law is the law, and that's that and all about it.
The fat controller felt exhausted. He mopped his face and said to Thomas's driver,
"I'm sorry, driver. Oh dear, it's no use arguing with policemen. We will have to make one of those cow-catcher things for Thomas, I suppose."
Thomas was horrified.
"Everyone will laugh, sir. They'll say that I look like a tram."
Eh? What? Like a tram? Why, yes. Well done, Thomas. Why didn't I think of that before? We want a tram engine. Now, when I was on my holiday, I met a nice little engine called Toby. Now, he hasn't enough work to do and needs a change. I'll write to his controller at once.
A few days later, Toby arrived, and the fat controller said to him,
"Well done, Toby, that's a good engine. I see you've brought Henrietta with you." "Oh, you don't mind, sir, do you? But the station master wanted to use her as a hen house, and that would never do, sir, would it?" "Oh, no, indeed it wouldn't. We couldn't allow that."
Toby made the trucks behave even better than Thomas did. At first, Thomas was jealous, but he was so pleased when Toby rang his bell and made the policeman jump that they have been firm friends ever since. Dirty objects. Toby and Henrietta take the workmen to the quarry every morning. At the junction they often meet James. Toby and Henrietta were shabby when they first came and needed new paint. James was very rude about them. "Ugh, ugh, what dirty objects! Ugh, what dirty objects!" At last Toby lost his patience.
You're James. Why are you red then,
"I'm a splendid engine, you see, ready for anything. You never see my paint dirty. Oh, no."
Oh, that's why you once needed bootlaces to be ready, I suppose,
James went redder than ever and snorted off. At the end of the line, James left his coaches and got ready for his next train. It was a slow goods, stopping at every station to pick up and set down trucks. James hated slow goods trains. Dirty trucks from dirty sidings. I hate them. I hate them, I do, there you are. Starting with only a few trucks, he picked up more and more trucks at each station till he had a long train. At first the trucks behaved well, but James bumped them so crossly that they determined to pay him out. Presently, rumbling over the viaduct, they approached the top of Gordon's Hill. Heavy goods trains halt here to pin down their brakes. James had had an accident with trucks before, and should have remembered this. His driver called to him, "Wait, James, wait, wait!" But James wouldn't wait. He was too busy thinking what he would say to Toby when they next met. All too late he saw where he was, and he tried to stop. The trucks saw their chance and started to laugh and shout, "Ha ha ha! And banging their buffers, they pushed him down the hill. The guard tightened his brakes until they screamed, and the trucks shouted, "Oh, oh, 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 oh!" James was frightened. "I've got to stop! I've got to stop! I've got to stop! I've got to stop!" And setting his brakes, he managed to check the truck's mad rush, but they were still going much too fast to stop in time. Through the station they thundered and lurched into the yard. James said, "Oh, oh, oh," and shut his eyes. There was a bursting crash, and something sticky splashed all over him. He had run into 2 tar wagons and was black from smoke box to cab. James was more dirty than hurt, but the tar wagons and some of the trucks were all to pieces. The breakdown train was in the yard, and they soon tidied up the mess. Toby and Percy were sent to help, and came as quickly as they could. And Toby said to Percy,
Look here, Percy. Whatever is that dirty object there? Any idea?
"Oh, that's James, Toby. Didn't you know?"
No, it's James's shape all right, but James is a splendid red engine, and you never see his paint dirty, do you? Never James dirty, eh?"
James shut his eyes and pretended he hadn't heard. They cleared away the unhurt trucks and helped James home. The fat controller was there to meet them. "Well done, Percy. Well done, Toby. And now you, James. Really. Fancy letting your trucks run away like that. I'm surprised. You're not fit to be seen. You must be cleaned at once. And Toby shall have a coat of paint.
Chocolate and blue, I think.
Oh, thank you, sir. And please, sir, can Henrietta have a coat of paint too?
Certainly, Toby, certainly. She shall be brown, like Annie and Clarabelle.
Oh, thank you, sir. She will be pleased.
And Toby ran home happily to tell her the news. Mrs. Kyndley's Christmas. It was nearly Christmas. Annie and Clarabelle were packed full of people and parcels. Thomas was having very hard work pulling them. Come on, come on, come on, come on. The coaches grumbled and were feeling so full. We're feeling so full, we're feeling so full, we're feeling so full. Thomas looked at the hill ahead. Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Suddenly he saw a handkerchief waving from a cottage window. He felt better at once. Yes, I can. Oh, yes, I can. Oh, yes, I can. Shh, 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 shh. Oh, yes, I can. Shh, 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 shh. He pulled his hardest and was soon through the tunnel and resting in the station. Thomas's driver said to him, "That was Mrs. Kyndley who waved to you, Thomas. She has to stay in bed all day."
Oh, has she? Oh, poor lady, I am sorry for her. I am sorry.
Engines have heavy loads at Christmas time, but Thomas and Toby didn't mind the hard work when they saw Mrs. Kyndley waving. But then it began to rain. It rained for days and days. Thomas didn't like it. Mrs. Kyndley couldn't wave on wet days. But whether she waved or not, they always whistled when they passed the little lonely cottage. Its white walls stood out against the dark background of the hills. Then, one day, Thomas's fireman said, "Hullo, look at that." The driver came across the cab.
"Ah, something's gone wrong there."
And there, hanging, flapping, and bedraggled from a window of Mrs. Kyndley's cottage, was something that looked like a large red flag.
"Mrs. Kyndley needs help, I expect. Let's stop, Thomas."
And he put on the brakes, and Thomas gently stopped. The guard came squelching through the rain and mud up to Thomas's cab, and the driver pointed to the flag.
"See if there's a doctor on the train, and ask him to go to the cottage. Then walk back to the station and tell him that we've stopped."
The fireman went to see if the line was clear in front. 2 passengers left the train and climbed to the cottage. Then the fireman returned, and the driver said, "Well, I think we'll back down to the station, so that Thomas can get a good start." But the fireman said, "Huh, we shan't get up that hill. Come and see what's happened." They walked along the line, round the bend, and the driver said, "Whoa, Jiminy Christmas! Go back to the train. I'm going to the cottage." He found the doctor with Mrs. Kyndley. "Are you all right, Mrs. Kyndley?"
Oh, yes, thank you. It was silly of me to faint, wasn't it? But you saw the red dressing-gown hanging out of the window, didn't you? Are you all safe?"
"Oh, yes, thank you, ma'am. I've just come to thank you. You know what, doctor? There's a landslide in the cutting. Mrs. Kyndley saw it from the window, and she stopped us. She saved our lives."
"God bless you, ma'am." And the driver went back to the train. They cleared the line by Christmas Day, and the sun shone as a special train puffed up from the junction. First came Toby, then Thomas with Annie and Clarabel, and last of all, but very pleased at being allowed to come, was Henrietta. The Fat Controller was there, and lots of other people who wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Kyndley. The engines whistled and called out when they reached the cottage. "Happy Christmas! Happy Christmas! Happy Christmas!" The people got out and climbed to the cottage. Thomas and Toby wished they could go too. Mrs. Kyndley's husband met them at the door. The Fat Controller, Thomas's driver, fireman, and guard went upstairs to give her some presents. Mrs. Kyndley was very pleased. "Oh, you're very good to me, very good indeed." And the Fat Controller said, "The passengers and I hope that you will accept these tickets for the South Coast, Mrs. Kyndley, and get really well in the sunshine. We cannot thank you enough for preventing an accident, a nasty accident. Now, I hope we've not tired you. Goodbye, and a happy Christmas." Then, going quietly downstairs, they joined the group outside the window and sang some carols. Mrs. Kyndley is now at Bournemouth, getting better every day, and Thomas and Toby are looking forward to the time when they can welcome her home. Off the rails. Gordon was resting in a siding when Henry came by and said,
"Hello, fat face! Hello, fat face!"
Gordon was furious. "What cheek! What cheek! That Henry is too big for his wheels. Fancy speaking to me like that. To me, who has never had an accident. Never, ever had an accident."
Percy was a bit puzzled. "Oh, but Gordon, aren't jammed whistles and burnt safety valves accidents?"
"No, indeed, they are not accidents. Not accidents. They're just high spirits. I mean, it might happen to any engine. But to come off the rails, well, I ask you, is it right? Is it decent,
A few days later, it was Henry's turn to take the express. Gordon watched him getting ready.
"Better be careful, Henry. You're not pulling the Flying Kipper now, you know. Mind you keep to the rails today, won't you,
Fat face! Shh, fat face! Shh, fat face! Shh, fat face! Shh.
And Henry went on his way. But Gordon didn't care. He yawned and went off to sleep. But he didn't sleep long, because his driver came along and said, "Come on, wake up, Gordon. A special train's coming and we're to pull it."
A special train? Is it coaches or trucks?
"It's trucks."
"Oh, trucks. I don't like trucks."
They lit Gordon's fire and oiled him ready for the run. The fire was sulky and wouldn't burn, but they couldn't wait, so Edward pushed him onto the turntable to get him facing the right way. Gordon grumbled like anything. "I won't go, I won't go, I won't go." Edward said, "Don't be silly, don't be silly, don't be silly." Gordon tried hard, but he couldn't stop himself being moved. At last he was on the turntable. Edward was uncoupled and backed away, and Gordon's driver and fireman jumped down to turn him round. The movement had shaken Gordon's fire. It was now burning nicely and making steam. But Gordon was cross and didn't care what he did. He waited till the table was halfway round, and he said, I'll show 'em. I'll show 'em. And he moved slowly forward. He only meant to go a little way, just far enough to jam the table and stop it turning as he'd done once before. But he couldn't stop himself, and he crashed through the side of the turntable and then through some wooden railings, and he slipped and slithered down a bank into a ditch. His wheels churned around in the mud.
My wheels are spinning. I can't get out. I can't get out. Oh, please get me out. Please get me out.
But his driver and fireman said, No, not a hope, not a hope. You're stuck, you silly great engine, you silly great engine. Don't you understand that? Don't you understand that, They telephoned the Fat Controller, who said,
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, so Gordon didn't want to take the special and ran into a ditch. Oh, yes. What's that you say? The special's waiting? Well, tell Edward to take it, please. Yes. Gordon? Oh, leave him where he is. We haven't got time to bother about him now.
A family of frogs croaked at Gordon as he lay in the mud.
Gordon, 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 Gordon.
On the other side of the ditch, some little boys shouted out, "Cool, doesn't he look silly? They'll never get him out." And they began to sing, "Silly old Gordon fell in the ditch, fell in the ditch, fell in the ditch. Silly old Gordon fell in the ditch all on a Monday morning. Ha 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 ha." Then the school bell rang, and they chased off down the road. Gordon was in a mess, and he said, "Ooh!" And he blew away 3 tadpoles and an inquisitive newt. And Gordon lay in the ditch all day long, and he was very, very unhappy.
Oh dear, oh dear, I shall never get out. I shall never get out.
But that evening they brought floodlights. Then, with powerful jacks, they lifted Gordon and made a road of sleepers under his wheels to keep him from the mud. Strong wire ropes were fastened to his back, and James and Henry, pulling hard, at last managed to bring him to the rails. Late that night, Gordon crawled home, a sadder and a wiser engine. Autumn leaves. 2 men were cleaning Gordon. Gordon didn't like it.
Mind my eye, mind my eye. You've got your holes in my eye. Oh, stop it.
Oh, shut up, silly. Shut up. Here, Bert, did you ever see such mud? No, Alf, I never did. You ought to be ashamed, Gordon, giving us extra work like this. The hosing and the scrubbing stopped. Gordon opened one eye, but shut it quickly. The Fat Controller came along.
Now, wake up, Gordon, and listen to me, will you? Now, look, you will pull no more coaches until you are a really useful engine. Understand that? A really useful engine. So there.
So Gordon had to spend his time pulling trucks, and he felt his position deeply.
Oh, goods trains. Goods trains. Oh, I ate goods trains. I ate them.
and he went up to the trucks and he banged them about, and they shouted out, "Oh, oh, 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 oh." James, who was watching all this, said, "It's no good going on like that, Gordon. Trucks will be trucks, you know."
"Ah, well, not with me they won't, not with me. Huh? I'll teach 'em. Go on."
And another truck scurried away.
Huh. They tried to push me down the hill this morning, James. Huh. It's slippery there. You'll probably need some help with the express, you know.
Me? Help? Ha! I don't need any help on hills. Gordon laughed and got ready for his next train. And James went away to take the express. Slippery hills indeed. I don't need help. Come on, you coaches. Come on. The coaches grumbled, all in good time, bawled in good time, bawled in good time, bawled in good time. The train was soon running nicely, but a distant signal checked them close to Gordon's Hill. Gordon's Hill used to be bleak and bare. Strong winds from the sea made it hard to climb. Trees were planted to give shelter, and in summer the trains run through a leafy avenue. Now autumn had come, and dead leaves fell. The wind usually puffed them away, but today rain made them heavy, and they didn't move. The home signal showed clear, and James began to go faster. He started to climb the hill. Easy, do it, 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 easy, do it. Halfway up, he was not so sure. I must do it, I must do it, I must do it, I must do it, I must do it. But try as he would, his wheels slipped on the leaves, and he couldn't pull the train at all. What's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter? Matter, 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 matter. What's the matter? What's the matter, 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 matter? James's driver tried to calm him. Steady, old boy, steady. The train slowly stopped, for although James's wheels were turning forwards, the whole train started slipping down the hill. James shouted, "Help! Help! Help!" James's driver shut off steam, carefully put on the brakes, and skillfully stopped the train. The guard came along and poked his head into the cab. "Know what? Back to the station and send for a banker." So they brought the train safely down. But Gordon, who had followed with the goods train, saw what had happened.
"Hello, James. I thought you could climb hills."
All James could say was, he hadn't enough steam.
"Ah, well, James, we live and learn, don't we? We live and learn. Never mind, little James. I'm going to push behind. Now look, whistle when you are ready,
So James waited till he had plenty of steam, and then he went,
"Right, pull hard, James, pull hard. We'll do it. Pull hard. We'll do it. We'll do it. Pull hard. Pull hard."
Clouds of smoke and steam towered from the snorting engines as they struggled up the hill.
"We can do it.
We will do it.
We can do it.
We will do it.
We can do it.
We will do it. The greasy rails sometimes made Gordon's wheels slip, but he never gave up, and presently they reached the top.
We've done it.
We've done it.
We've done it.
We've done it.
All right, James. Well, goodbye.
Goodbye, Gordon, and thank you very much indeed. Gordon watched the coaches wistfully till they were out of sight. Then slowly he trundled back to his waiting trucks. Down the mine. One day Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled in with some trucks. Thomas said, "Phew, what a funny smell. Can you smell a smell, Annie and Clarabelle?"
No, I can't smell a smell, Thomas.
Oh, no, I can't smell a smell, Thomas. Yes, it's a funny sort of smell, isn't it, Gordon?
Well, no one noticed it till you did. It must be yours.
It isn't. Annie, Clarabelle, do you know what I think it is? It's ditch water.
Ditch water? Huh.
Yes, ditch water. Goodbye. I'm off. Annie and Clarabelle could hardly believe their ears. They kept telling Thomas,
You mustn't be rude. You make us ashamed.
"Oh, you mustn't be rude. You make us ashamed."
but Thomas didn't care a bit. He just laughed.
"Oh, that was funny, that was. That really was funny."
He felt very pleased with himself. Annie and Clarabelle were deeply shocked. They had great respect for Gordon, the big engine. Thomas left the coaches at a station and went to a mine for some trucks. Long ago, miners digging for lead had made tunnels under the ground. Though strong enough to hold up trucks, their roofs could not bear the weight of engines. A large notice said, "Danger! Engines must not pass this board." Thomas had often been warned, but he didn't care. He'd often tried to pass the board, but he'd never succeeded, and he always used to say, "Ha! Silly old board! Silly old board!" This morning he laughed as he puffed along, and he made a plan. He had to push empty trucks into one siding and pull out full ones from another. His driver stopped him, and the fireman went to turn the points. The fireman waved,
"Come on! Come on!"
and then Thomas started. The driver leaned out of the cab to see where they were going, and then Thomas saw his chance. Right now! And bumping the trucks fiercely, he jerked his driver off the footplate. "Hurrah! I've done it! I've done it!" And laughing like anything, Thomas followed the trucks into the siding, past the notice board. But suddenly there was a rumbling and a groaning, and the rails quivered. The fireman jumped clear just as the ground sank, and the rails sagged and broke, and Thomas dropped right down into the big hole that had suddenly appeared. "Oh, oh dear! Shh, shh! Oh, fire and smoke! Oh, oh, oh! Oh, oh, I'm sunk!" And he was. He could just see out of the hole, but he couldn't move. "Oh, oh dear! Oh, oh dear! Oh, oh, I am a silly little engine, no."
"Yes, and a very naughty one too, Thomas. I saw you."
It was the fat controller.
"Oh, please, sir, get me out, sir, and I won't be naughty again."
Well, I'm not so sure about that. We can't lift you out with the crane. The ground's not firm enough now. Let me see. I wonder if Gordon could pull you out."
"Oh, Gordon, yes, sir.
Oh! Thomas didn't want to meet Gordon just yet. When Gordon heard what had happened, he started to laugh.
Down a mine, is he? Oh, what a joke! What a joke! Down a mine!
And he went off to rescue Thomas.
What a joke! What a joke! Hello, little Thomas. Hey, you are in a mess, aren't you, eh? Never mind. We'll have you out in a couple of puffs.
But they didn't pull Thomas out in 2 puffs. Gordon was panting hard and nearly purple before he dragged Thomas out of the hole and safely past the board. Oh, Gordon, I am sorry that I was so cheeky.
Oh, that's all right, Thomas. You made me laugh, you know, and, well, it did me good, you see, because I'm in disgrace, you know, and, well, I feel a bit low.
Oh, but I'm in disgrace too, Gordon.
Why, so you are, Thomas. We're both in disgrace. Look, shall we form an alliance?
An ally, what was it?
An alliance, Thomas. United we stand, together we fall. You help me, and I help you. How about that?
Oh, right you are, Gordon.
Good. That's settled then.
And buffer to buffer, the Allies puffed home. Paint pots and queens. The stations on the line were being painted. The engines were surprised. They asked the painters why the stations were being painted. Well, because the Queen is coming, so there. The engines in the shed were excited and wondered who would pull the royal train. Edward knew it wouldn't be him. Well, I'm too old to pull important trains. Gordon knew it wouldn't be him.
Well, I'm in disgrace. The Fat Controller would never choose me.
But James, the red engine, was confident. Well, he'll choose me, of course. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it at all. But Henry couldn't agree.
Choose you? Choose you? You can't climb hills. He will ask me to pull it, and I'll have a new coat of paint. You wait and see.
The days passed, and Henry puffed about proudly, quite sure that he would be the royal engine. One day, when it rained, Henry's driver and fireman stretched a tarpaulin from the cab to the tender to keep themselves dry. Henry puffed into the big station. A painter was climbing a ladder above the line. Henry's smoke puffed upwards in a big cloud. It was thick and black. The painter choked and couldn't see. Oh! He missed his footing on the ladder, dropped his paint pot, and fell, whoa, plop, onto Henry's tarpaulin. The paint poured all over Henry's boiler and trickled down each side, and the paint pot perched on Henry's dome. The painter clambered down and shook his brush at Henry. Ah, you spoil my clean paint with your dirty smoke, and then you take the whole lot and make me go and fetch some more. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. The fat controller came pushing through the crowd. Dear me, you look like an iced cake, Henry. That won't do for the royal train. Oh no. I'm afraid that I must make other arrangements, yes. And he walked over to the yard. Gordon and Thomas saw him coming, and both began to speak at once. Please, sir, I want...
Excuse me, sir, but I was thinking. Now, one at a time, please, one at a time. Now, what is it, Gordon? Well, sir, I just wanted to ask you if Thomas could have his branch line back again. I see. Uh-huh. And what do you want, Thomas?
Oh, please, sir, can Gordon pull coaches again?
I see. So that's it. Well, you've both been quite good lately, and you deserve a treat, so when the Queen comes, Edward will go in front and clear the line, Thomas will look after the coaches, and Gordon will pull the train. Oh, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
The great day came. Percy, Toby, Henry and James worked very hard bringing people to the town. Thomas sorted all their coaches in the yard.
They're coming! They're coming!
Edward steamed in, looking smart with flags and bright paint. 2 minutes passed, then 5, then 7, and then 10, and then... Everyone knew that whistle, and a mighty cheer went up as the Queen's train glided into the station. Gordon was spotless, and his brass shone. Like Edward, he was decorated with flags, but on his buffer beam he proudly carried the royal arms. The Queen was met by the Fat Controller, and before doing anything else, she thanked him for their splendid run. The Fat Controller bowed and said,
"Not at all, Your Majesty. Thank you."
And then the Queen said to the Fat Controller, "We have read a great deal about your engines. May we see them, please?" So he led the way to where all the engines were waiting. Toby and Percy said,
"They're coming! They're coming!"
Henry and James said, "Shh!" But Toby and Percy were too excited to care. The Fat Controller told the Queen their names, and she talked to each engine. Then, as she turned to go, Percy bubbled over.
"Oh, I say, 3 cheers for the Queen! Hip, hip! Hip, hip! Hip, hip!"
The Fat Controller held his ears, but the Queen, smiling, waved to the engines till she passed the gate. Next day, the Queen spoke specially to Thomas, who fetched the coaches, and to Edward and Gordon, who took her away, and no engines ever felt prouder than Thomas and Edward and Gordon, the big engine.